Okay, so now we're going to talk about technical codes. Technical codes are ways in which equipment is used to tell a story. So we're going to talk about camera work, and we're going to talk about lighting. But we're going to start with the camera work. So let's get started and talk about different shot types. So I'm going to go through 5 different shot types with you, and these are very common. They're not the entire list of shot types, but they're probably 5 of the most common shot types, at least 4 of the 5. So the first shot you should be aware of is what we call the establishing shot. And this is to establish the setting of the scene. The focus is on the landscape. Characters aren't very important in this scene. If the characters are included, usually can't tell who they are. This type of shot is also called a wide shot. So if we look over here, we have the town of Spectre. We can see what the buildings look like, a church in the background, the nice grassy field, the same thing, Spectre at nighttime. The characters aren't important in this scene. Now, the one time it can be important is if it was a character who's feeling hopelessness and they're small on the screen and we see a lot of landscape. But if you see that and the focus is still on the character, it might mean the character's feeling hopeless. Here we can see Callaway Circus. We can see how, the hustling and the bustle of Callaway Circus. And here we can see Auburn University, where Edward Bloom goes to meet Sandra Templeton. The next shot is what we call the full shot. And in the full shot, we see the character's full body. We see them from head to toe. They could take up the entire screen, or like these characters here, just half the screen, about half the screen just in the middle. So this is us enabling the characters have a little bit more importance. We can see them in relationship to their surroundings. Where are they going? We see them walking down a road over here, and over here the field of flowers, both symbolic, right? If you're going to place characters, multiple characters, a lot of times you're going to put your most powerful characters in the forefront. So here's some more, a little bit different, head to toe here. So Amos Callaway's characters for head to toe the entire screen. And even over here, even though Edward Bloom is lying down, it's still a full shot. The next shot is the mid shot, in which we see the characters from the waist up. This is the most natural shot, and so most shots are actually filmed this way. And it's like that way because a film is supposed to make us feel like we're part of the action, like we're the silent observer. And when we talk to people, we're usually talking to people and making eye contact. And when we make eye contact, we usually see from the waist up. Just a natural thing. So shots are like that too, whether we're sitting at the dinner table with Edward Bloom or observing the fight between Edward Bloom and Don Price. The close-up is probably the shot you want to pay the most important attention to because the director wants you to pay attention to a detail. It could be a character that he wants you to make a connection with, and so the face fills up the screen. And both these, the face fills up the screen. Want to make an emotional connection. Maybe it's to create anxiety because the larger a character is on the screen, the more attention they deserve, and they can appear more powerful. So in this particular scene, we see Edward Bloom's death being described by his son, William. And his face fills the screen as a good storyteller does. We see this several times with Edward Bloom. When he's telling a story, his face is very large on the screen. On a side note, if you remember when I told you with the rule of thirds, when a character's face is lined up on this line and they're facing the closer edge, oftentimes it's feeling trapped. And in this particular moment, William Bloom would be feeling trapped because he is facing the death of his father and there's nothing he can do about it. So again, more close-ups. Okay, connect that emotional connection. We can see this is William Bloom telling the story about actually a joke, not a story about the milkman that dropped dead on his mother's porch. And at the start of the story, he's in bed. He tells a little bit more. Gets closer, and finally when he's talking about the anxiety, his face is in the entire screen. Can show a character growing in importance. So we use that close-up to get closer and closer, and we see this with Sandra Templeton way back there, and we keep on getting closer and closer as her importance is growing to Edward Bloom. Close-ups can also show objects, and pay particular attention when an object is shown on the screen as a close-up because this is the director saying, hey, you need to notice this. It might be a key important plot element or it could be symbolic. And here's 2 examples. We see a close-up of a ring, and I've tried to point out to you guys that rings are symbolic. And a close-up of a water being poured into a glass. Again, water being symbolic. So the director really wants you to notice those two things. You can also have an extreme close-up. An extreme close-up is actually a rare shot, but it's used for emphasis. I want to show a character crying. Maybe I zoom in on their eye and you see it welling up. Maybe I just want to show the lips of a character. You know, they're responding to bad news, and I want to see how they're going to respond. Are they going to smile? Are they going to have lips quivering? So if a director uses an extreme close-up, it is for emphasis. So those are 5 conventional shot types. Now let's talk about 4 conventional angles. Right? Much like the mid shot, the most common shot is the eye level shot. And again, this is because we're part of the conversation. Right? If we're sitting at a dinner table with him, we're going to be at eye level because we're part of the conversation. You know, this is how we react in real life. You know, we're in the fight. We're at eye level with the characters. We're on the same level. So it's the most common shot. There's not much symbolic meaning behind it, nothing to do with codes. When we are looking down at the subject, such as this scene right here, we're looking down at Edward Bloom as he is being beat up by Don Price. Looking down at a character shows weakness, and the higher up we are, the more weak the character appears. So if you're watching a fight scene, you know, look, the character's losing, often going to be on the ground. It might even be in that lower third we had mentioned at the start of this unit. If a character is feeling a moment of weakness, you know, we might be looking down at them. It doesn't have to be for a fight. You know, here Edward Bloom is dying, so we're looking down at him because he is weak, he's powerless. Here, I love this shot because in this particular scene, we are looking down on Edward Bloom. Sandra Templeton has all the power. He's just waiting. Is she going to make a decision? Is she going to come down? Is she going to join him down here? It's all up to her. He's very powerless. Also, look how small he is in comparison to her. The complete opposite is the low angle when we're looking up at the subject, and that is meant to make the character look more powerful, more menacing. Again, the larger the face, the more menacing they're going to be. So again, with the fight scene, the camera switches to Don Price looking up at him, and Edward Bloom's he's got all the power. Same thing here. We look up at the window and we see Sandra Templeton. Again, she has all the power. The higher up, the more power they might have. Dutch angle is a unique shot. It's when the subjects are tilted. They're not on those straight lines. And it shows a moment of confusion where they're just not right. Something's wrong. So, for example, when they see the giant, you know, and he was the giant before, and they both see the giant, and things just aren't right. It's not what they're used to. Same thing with robbing the bank. You can see all the angles from Edward Bloom being this way to the walls being this way. Edward Bloom's robbing a bank, or he's going to get coaxed into robbing a bank, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's meant to create uneasiness, just to show us that things aren't right. So if you see a Dutch angle or a canted angle, ask yourself, is this a moment of confusion? Something's just not right in the world of the characters? And there you have a code. And that wraps up camera work.